How you doing, sir?
Oh, doing well this morning. How about you?
Doing well. Hey, we've been having a little conversation about Tua and the Heisman conversation and whether or not his playing time is going to impact that. And we had a caller that called in, wanted to get with you before we get into our regular conversation. So I'm going to bring Pat in and let him ask you a question about Heisman identity. Pat, you're in with DC. What's on your mind?
Good morning, DC. DC, the spirit of the Heisman is supposed to be the most fantastic player with the best skills in the country that helps his team win consistently, and that his play is one of the biggest reasons that his team wins consistently. Is that not correct?
That and character, DC. It used to be about character, but that changed a little while ago. DC, what you got?
Yeah, I think when the founders at the Downtown Athletic Club came up with the Heisman, it was to award character beginning with, and then athletic ability as well. But it's for that outstanding player on a team that epitomizes the John Heisman toughness, character, and how he was the player that made everyone around him better and made the team better and always led his team to victory. So, yeah, I think that's exactly what epitomizes the Heisman winning.
And that is what Tua has in spades, for lack of a better term, that his ability to distribute the football. Yes, Jalen is a good player and all that kind of stuff, and Jalen's a winner, that he knows how to win. It's in his heart to win. However, that without Tua, that we would not have won last year's national title. And the thing is not about what we did last year. It's about what we're doing this year. Hey, he is making
Pat,
this team. Go ahead.
Let me blow your mind. Last year's half was Tua's worst half of football. Think about that for a second.
I understand that.
No. I'm giving him a compliment, Pat. I'm saying as great as what he did in the second half, as far as just performance and efficiency, that half, when you look at some of the plays he missed and some of the receivers, he didn't miss a lot, but and then a couple potential interceptions, that may be the worst half he's played. So if you thought he was great then, how do you not think what he's done now is Heisman worthy?
Well, hey, just like I talked about that Matrix deal and all, about what his numbers are unreal. That even Jay Barker is saying that his numbers are totally off the chart. Hey, and Jay was with a winning program, bless his heart.
Yeah.
That he became a better quarterback as he got older.
When he got
but when he started in '92, he was a game manager. Yeah. But anyway, Tua is not a game manager, and I'm gonna get off and let you get back to your thing you do with DC, which I love. And hey, y'all have a blessed day, and perhaps that this thing is going to play out because, the silk suits in Vegas, even they could tell right off the bat that, Tua Tagovailoa was the best player in the nation. Have a great day, fellas. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Pat. DC, I'll let you comment on that.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that Tua is leading the Heisman race right now. The only thing he'll have to fight against is Alabama fatigue. People in the media not liking Alabama. But there'll be some love out there for some other players that have a chance to lead their team to the college football playoff. But I don't think there's any doubt that Tua, if he keeps doing what he's doing, and I don't buy into all this. The way Nick Saban is playing the quarterbacks is going to affect his Heisman candidacy. His greatness is not depicted by how much playing time he gets. His greatness is by what he does when he's on the field. That's the way he'll be judged by.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. And, the question is, Nick Saban kind of asked it at the press conference with Eli Cole last week when it was at Bum Hours. He was like, do y'all want to go back to those nip and tuck games, or do you want to continue to have the explosive plays and explosive games? And with that comes, that's just part of it with what he's doing. And I see no issues with ultimately Tua in the long run. And if it gets him out, keeps him safe, I guess that's what we'd rather have. But we'll see. Alabama fans still calling for Tua to play longer and more, but we'll see if that begins to happen as the competition supposedly ramps up. All right, DC, we had Alabama versus the Raging Cajuns. Give us your breakdown takeaways from that particular game.
Well, the podcast that we put up yesterday, I actually taped that podcast before Coach Saban's press conference, and I said the opening line on there, exactly what he said at his press conference. I knew the one thing that he was going to be most impressed with in that game was that Alabama went out and played to a standard, didn't play their competition, went out and played to a standard, and then just dominated in every facet of the game. And I just think it was I give Billy Napier credit. He's trying to change the culture there. I think give him a few years, he'll have a winning program there in their conference, and he'll do a good job. They just didn't have the athletes, they didn't have the athleticism, and they didn't have the total team to kind of compete with Alabama this time. But Alabama didn't care about that. Alabama when they went out and played like Coach Saban had coached them, and that is to play to a standard, to dominate the man in front of you and win every play. And I think they did that. The only facet of the game they didn't improve in, I thought, was punting, and they didn't have an opportunity to punt. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, hey, DC, when you talk about Napier, I know that's a quick sidebar. When you look at what he's doing, you look at how his guys played when they got behind, when they were down, and it was Bama's second team, but that Bama's second team is mid-tier college football, and they dominated. I mean, I know our guys wasn't playing at their, peak necessarily, but as you said, he's putting some things in place, and he has some talent, but he has to get more players, and we'll see how that ultimately works out for him. All right, DC, who is your players of the game from the offensive side of the ball?
Well, offensive side of the ball, you could pick two every game because you go 8 for 8 and 2 touchdowns. That's amazing. But in this game, the standout that I thought just really took over this game was Jalen Waddle. And on your show many weeks ago, you and I talked about this young kid who was turning heads in practice, and this freshman. And right now, every one of our listeners out there, they can tell that this kid has got it. There's an it factor in him, and when you have 4 touches and you score 3 touchdowns, that's a pretty good day. He had 201 all-purpose yards, and he just looks the part, but he plays the part as well, and did a fantastic job in this game. So I think Jalen Waddle is one of our offensive standouts in the game, and then of course Henry Ruggs III. And, I think the commentators talked about it on the TV when I watched the replay back, but they said that everyone talks about Jalen Waddle and how fast he is, but he's not actually the fastest player on the team. The fastest player on the team is probably Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, a close second to that. But Henry Ruggs did a fantastic job in this game, not only catching the ball and getting yards after the catch, but he made some really impressive catches over the middle, especially on the ball that Jalen threw down the middle. And I thought that was one of the greatest plays I've seen. When Jalen throws that ball, stays in the pocket. That play in itself epitomizes his change from this year, from last year to this year. And I think a big part of that staying in the pocket and make that down the field throws. But Henry Ruggs did a great job. He's my second standout player. And my third one was on the offensive line. If you watch on the offensive line, I was just impressed with Alex Leatherwood in this game. He's improved so much from game one, made that transition from tackle to guard in this game. Really had a really good game, I think, on the offensive line. So those are my 3 offensive standout players. All
right, and I had Henry Ruggs as an honorable mention, absolutely, because his physicality after catches is definitely impressive. And in no way am I knocking Jerry Jeudy, but that was just Jerry Jeudy tried to make a move before he caught the ball on an earlier pass and dropped it. Ruggs just ran through the pass. And, of course, he was more open, but it was like he had no fear going over the middle. And then once the contact came, he just ran through it. So not only is he fast, I think he's deceptively strong. So he was the guy that I was going to point out, but you already pointed that out. One of the things we want to talk about, DC, on the other side was Womack got back in the game, and they put him in at right tackle, which was interesting to me. and we'll talk about why when we come back on the other side. You're listening to the Blitz on Top 102.9, 100.9. We're in with DC and the Capstone Report. You can find that podcast at dccapstonereport.com.
Well, I don't know if you're correct that we've always done that. There have been occasions when we've done that, when we had guys that we thought fit the roles. So we feel like those two guys fit the roles to play all the time, and we don't necessarily have another guy that we feel fits the role of being able to play, better in one circumstance or another. So that's why we've, played the guys that we're playing.
That's Coach Nick Saban talking about the rotation between Mack Wilson and Dylan Moses. Both of those guys getting a lot of playing time, and when they're going to the specialty packages, they're actually rotating, not one guy necessarily playing more than the other. We're speaking with DC in the Capstone Report right here on the Blitz. DC, as we were going to break there, I was mentioning Womack being back in the lineup. He was at right tackle. I have concerns that he's at right tackle because that becomes Tua's blind side if he works himself back into the starting rotation. However, I also have concerns, not as much as I had before with the running game. I said last week that both running and passing would go over 250 and would possibly eclipse 600. And we had 608 yards total offense with 268 on the ground. When you look at Womack coming back in, do you see them leaving him at that right tackle, possibly making some moves, but him possibly moving down inside? Or what's your thoughts there?
Well, I don't see him staying at right tackle. I think Jedrick Wills has done a great job there, and if he's capable of coming back, which I don't think he has any injuries to keep him out any significant playing time, I think Jedrick Wills comes back in that place. He's done an excellent job protecting to his blind side, and you made a good point there. When you have a left-handed quarterback, the right tackle is very important. The way Alabama's played so far, I don't see them making a change like that. I think Matt Womack coming in did a fine job as backup, and I think that's what he'll continue to do during the season.
All right. Hey, let me ask you this: you've heard a lot of conversation about Tua Tagovailoa's playing time because of the game getting out of hand. When you look at Damian Harris, he only has 5 touches. Is that just a simple result of the other guys are getting more carries, but it's because Damian's a starter, and once we get ahead, they're also taking him out? Or is it, he's starting as much because he's the senior and they feel that Najee Harris and Josh Jacobs gives them more? It's been puzzling, but I know that there's some other factors other than just Damian's ability.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with Damian's ability. I think he's one of the most underrated backs in the SEC. I think it has the reasoning behind that has to do with the makeup of their skill set. I think Damian is starting because they trust him the most for blocking assignments, and I think Josh Jacobs comes in second because he's trusted more on blocking assignments. And you got to look at the 3 different runners as well. Damian Harris is a straight ahead runner, hit the hole, shifty runner, with a lot of speed. Josh Jacobs comes in, he had the whole different motor, different dynamic, and great out of the backfield catching the ball. And then by the time they put Najee in there, he's just punishing downhill, beat you, get that 9-10 yards at a time. Then it has the capability of breaking a big one like he did in this game. So they have 3 different styles. I think they're using 3 different skill sets. But Damian Harris is a clear starter, in my opinion, based on his experience and based on his skill.
How do you keep a guy like that engaged? Do you just lean on the fact that he's a 5th-year senior, he understands, and that as we get a little tougher, things may work out? Or is that something that Alabama, in your opinion, needs to be conscious of?
Well, in this particular case, I would say, in let's say in a normal situation, I would think maybe they need to be careful about that. But in this particular case, knowing Damian Harris and also knowing he's a 5th-year senior, he's come back, play his senior year here because he loves Alabama so much. He's a team player. He's going to do whatever the coaches want him to do. But I think if you see the competition getting stiffer, you'll see Damian Harris playing more and playing longer.
All right. DC and the Capstone Report presented by RollTopBama.com, FreelancePictures.com. You also have Big Game. Nick Saban referred to this as a potential trap game. What's your assessment of the Arkansas Razorbacks and Alabama traveling over to Fayetteville to take on the Razorbacks?
Well, you think this game has always been a tough game for Alabama, especially going to Fayetteville. Arkansas has always played Alabama a tough game, and it's set up for a perfect trap game. But I just don't see that in this game for a couple of reasons. One is this team is proven already against lesser opponents that they go out and play against the standard. And I think going on the road, and I think it has a lot to do with leadership. We have people like Damian Harris who can come back, like Jalen Hurts, and on offense, and who have been there and are really leading this team in a good way. And they see the sacrifice that other players are making and playing their role. And I think that's really helped this young team do that as well on both sides of the ball. So I think they're playing to that standard because of the leaders that they have in place to lead them. And so I don't see that being a problem in this game. The only problem I think we could have is if we leave them in the game ourselves. We could beat ourselves with turnovers and mistakes and penalties and things of that nature. But if we have a relatively turnover-free game and mistake-free game, I don't think Arkansas can stay on in the game with us. And I say that not really to knock against Arkansas. Coach Saban pointed out in his press conference, they're in a transition period where they're going from a Brett Bielema offense to a Chad Morris offense. Those offenses are just two different animals. But you're trying to use Brett Bielema's personnel to run a Chad Morris offense. I think that says a little bit about Chad Morris. He has not adapted his offense to use the personnel that he has in ways that he gets. So I think he's trying to go a little too fast with Arkansas, and that's shown. That's why they haven't won any games.
Hey, DC, that's like putting me at quarterback and expecting a run and shoot. I promise you, it's not going to happen.
I think that's true. Or it's like a run and shoot guy coming in behind a Gene Stallings offense and trying to make a Gene Stallings offense run and shoot.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So, hey, we got Tom that has a question for you or a comment about the running game. Tom, you're in with DC, the Capstone Report. What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning. How are y'all?
Doing well.
Listen, somebody called in yesterday on one of the shows. I can't remember who or what or anything like that. It kind of grabbed me, and I've been thinking about it, wanted to get your take on it. They said if you notice our running game, when we get down on the goal line inside the 5, our backs just basically walk into the end zone,
right?
And they've been doing that all year long so far. Is that an indication that when we really want to run the ball, we can run it, or what's your take on that? The caller pointed that out, and I thought it was really interesting to think about.
It was a guy that called in the show, and that's what he was saying. Actually, it was on. He was on with me. And the Monday Morning Quarterback, and he was just pointing out in the red.
Yeah, you're right. It was your show.
Yeah, in the red zone. Yeah, so he was talking about how effective we are at running the ball in the red zone. DC, I'll let you respond, then I'll come back and respond.
Well, I think there's two reasons for that, and it's a good question. I think Alabama done really well in the red zone, but you remember when you're inside that 5-yard line, Alabama brings in a different personnel grouping. And the point is they're going to run the ball. Sometimes they pass off it. You've seen a good pass off of that, the pass option off of that, running the ball to go to tight end. But 90% of the time they're going to run the ball. They tell you they're going to run the ball, and they just run in, and everybody gets blocked. But I think at that point it's putting a helmet on the helmet and bringing in the tight end, the extra blockers. So you're concentrating on that. So we're in a tight formation. And I think the tight formation in that tight space is indicative that you're going to run the ball. But Alabama doesn't care if they're going to run it because they can run it right down your throat at that point. And the other, when you're on the field in your regular offense, you're spread out a lot further. You've got to get the open spaces for the passing game and for the gap running that you run in those times. And so I think you have an advantage when you're in the red zone there inside the 5-10-yard line. And I think Alabama can pretty much run on anybody in that tight space and that tight formation.
Yeah, Tom, and I'll just add to that. Yes, I believe it's formation like DC said. I also think there's a couple other things. once we get inside of that 20, a couple things. The passing game is a much quicker passing game. You're going to throw fades. You're going to throw slants. You're going to throw corner routes with a lot more timing, tight ends down the middle. So number one is if you throw the ball, the offensive lineman, it's not a long pass. It's a quick pass. Generally, you won't be more than 3 yards downfield if you're blocking someone. So when they run the RPO, if he pulls it and it's a run and he pulls it, it's going to be a quick pass. So you're probably not going to get beyond that 3 yards. That's possibly one. The other one is Nick Saban said himself, sometimes I have to tell him just run the ball. And I think that when we're getting in the red zone, they're not calling RPOs as much as they're calling running plays. And those linemen aren't worried about getting 3 yards downfield, Tom. They're firing off and they're driving. This is an extremely strong offensive line, in my opinion, from a power standpoint. But when you have such a high percentage of RPOs, they can't just drive block. They have to drive block 3 yards and then see if the running back has the ball. And that kind of slows them down, I think, and makes them a little hesitant in open field. So that's my thoughts on why it's much more effective running game in the red zone.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I barely caught the conversation yesterday, but now that you mentioned, I remember your response. I wanted to say, too, that I've noticed, and you brought this up in the past, that we go sometimes with a two-back set. You know, Brian Robinson will come in and in a power formation, and it's been pretty effective when they've done that.
Yeah, I'd like to see it more, but, you know, I'm old school.
Well, I think also a good illustration of what Martin just said, if you'll watch a replay of the game, there's a time when we're down on the goal line and we're going to run the play in. Chris Owens is in for Jonah Williams, and he takes his man and drives him 4.5, 5 yards into the end zone, and the back runs in, walks in right behind him.
Yeah.
Very good illustration of that. When he's run blocking, he can do that. When he has to worry about being 3 yards down the field, he can't do that kind of driving. And that's a really good illustration of what Martin just depicted for us.
All right.
I saw a play against A&M where they took Damien and they ran him off the guard in between Wills and Leatherwood, and they busted that thing. I mean, it was like 15 or 20 yards, and it was quick and fast and a good running play. I'm concerned about Damien, though, not getting the touches and not getting to run the ball as much. I'm a little concerned about that. I'm going to hang up and listen to that response, if you don't mind.
All right. Thanks, Tom. David, I'll let you respond to Tom.
Well, I don't think you have to really be concerned about Damien. I said it before earlier. He's fifth-year senior. He knows he's a team player. He's going to do whatever the coaches want him to do. I think he'll get more touches as you go through the season, especially against LSU and Auburn when we have to run the ball. I think he'll be fine.
Thanks, DC, for sticking around. 2 quick questions. First of all, Tim Redding wanted you to give Luke Smith, who's listening, and an Auburn fan, a little love. But Luke did bring up a good point. And this first point is, he said from the point of view, he's out of town right now, and he's at the Buffalo Wild Wings up there. And he says, it's boring to watch Alabama games. After 12 minutes, they turn it. So just give a quick comment about, is Alabama winning so much that it's becoming boring, or should these fans really enjoy this time?
I wouldn't call a win boring at all. I think that Alabama fans really enjoy this time. Alabama has an offense that they haven't had in past. I mean, just to me, in my whole lifetime, I've never seen an offense that has production like this offense does and can score at any time. And you know, we're at a point now where we're hitting on all cylinders. We have a great defense. You know, I don't know who people keep knocking our defense. Our first team defense hasn't let anybody score on them, and I don't know when.
Yeah, other than the one long bomb by Ole Miss, that's it.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that was just one person's missed assignment, I think.
Right.
That play. So team-wise, I think we got a great defense. We got a great offense, probably the best offense in the nation at this point. And who would have said that Alabama was leading the nation in offense? And then special teams, we got a guy returning on punts now that anytime he touches the ball, he can take it to the house for a touchdown. So I think Alabama fans are spoiled. But it's great to hear that an Auburn fan like Luke Smith is watching us from Buffalo Wild Wings. That's impressive. Give a shout out to him this morning.